All right, this week on Kiss Army Things, we have some unfinished business to attend to. So, Joey, you were on about a month ago, and we were talking about your involvement on Ace Frehley's new album, 10,000 Volts, and it was an awesome conversation. So awesome that I forgot to even mention the new release that just came out and your involvement on that. So thank you so much for coming back on the show and talking about this with me, man. I appreciate it.
Dude, again, thanks so much for having me. Like I said, right before I came on last time, I became a big fan of the show. Watch it every week. Lots of great stuff, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I was also able to be on Podcast Rock City. Joe invited me over with a panel of guests, and we were talking about the sale to Pop House. And so even though you weren't there, it was still really cool to be on Podcast Rock City. So also a big fan of your show. So anybody who watches my show, go check out Podcast Rock City. But today we're going to be talking all about Eric Carr's newest re-release of Unfinished Business. This originally came out in 2011. Here is the original for anybody out there who hasn't seen it. So Joey, I want you to take us all the way back to 2011. So how did ZO2 actually, how did you just get involved in this project period? I want to talk about the two tracks separately, but go ahead and tell us how this all began.
Yeah, so Loretta and I became close. If anyone knows, that I was in the Kiss tribute band called Kiss Nation back in the early 2000s, 2001, 2002, 2003. And I played Eric Carr in that band exclusively. We did the Creatures era of Kiss, and then we also went to an Unmasked for a little while. But I was Eric. Had the pleasure of meeting Eric's parents at one of the conventions. You know, we did a photo shoot together, became really close with Loretta. After that, especially, you know, right after Kiss Nation, my band ZO2 went on the road with Kiss. So, you know, I got thrust right into, the mainstream and the big time, and went from that tribute band scene to immediately touring with the band I was just tributing, which is crazy. So, Loretta and I became really close during that time. And, she sent some family members out to those Rock the Nation shows. I would get them passes all the time. So, we were back and forth for many, many years. She became a really big fan of ZO2. Obviously, I worshiped her brother. So, we had a little bond going. So after years of talking and, we were already starting the preliminary discussions. I'm not sure if anyone knows this, but I helped Loretta develop Eric's ROCKHEADS. So if anyone doesn't know what ROCKHEADS is Eric's, he was developing a cartoon series back before he passed in the mid 80s, all the way through when he passed. And it was about this little kids. It was a rock band. They had big hair. So much fun, but it was just in the preliminary stages. He had some drawings. He was a great artist. So Loretta and I started talking about, I was starting to do other stuff now, right around this 2008, 9, 10. I had just done Z-Rock, which was my band's TV show we did on IFC. So I was in that TV space. I started producing some of my own things, writing my own things. I produced an animated series that starred myself and Gilbert Gottfried. I played this old curmudgeon, like a Archie Bunker type character, and Gilbert Gottfried played my arch nemesis, which he was a Hasidic Jewish midget. I mean, what else could Gilbert play, right?
That's amazing.
So, we battled. We pitched this to network. It was right around the time where all this PC culture started happening, and Me Too and woke and all this other stuff started really taking off. And our show was very, very offensive.
Yeah.
Not politically correct. It was, Archie Bunker meets South Park, times 10. So it was a lot of fun, but I was developing this animated series, and Loretta knew this. So she approached me to help her start developing the ROCKHEADS and try to get it picked up by network. So from there, Loretta and I, and it's on my YouTube page, it's even on my social media. I actually just posted something maybe a week ago. We developed, I fleshed out the whole show. I fleshed out the characters. Eric had a lot of the backstory, but he didn't have the whole concept. his show was just based around this kid's rock band. What I did was I came in and I made it more of a Scooby-Doo meets Kiss type show where, it was this little kid's rock band, but they were also ghost hunters and mystery, solvers. And they were always in these wacky predicaments with, serpents and demons and all this other stuff. So, I really fleshed out the show to become more user-friendly for networks and for, just to get it picked up by networks. So Loretta and I did all the work on that. We wrote the original theme song to that. We came up with a trailer, and I'll send you the link to the trailer. Maybe you can post it in the episode, or you can even plug it right now.
Gee, Monkey, I sure hope we could get to the show. There's always something that gets in our way.
No worries, Ruffy. What could possibly go wrong?
Hey! Oh, no!
Here we go again!
We are the Rockheads, ready, set, let's go! Johnny Bugs, more of us, gotta make it to the show. Up on board, we never stop. We never stop! We are the Rockheads, wondering how we do it all. New school, break, roll, jamming in the study hall. We just can't be stopped. Can't be stopped. Epic adventures round every corner. Nothing can stand in the way. Epic adventure. Out on the run, lots of mysteries and fun. Rockheads, we're ready to play. Epic adventure. So stand up and cheer as we set up our gear. We know you'll enjoy the show. Ready, set, let's go.
And from there, Loretta had just started, this is a long answer to a short question. Loretta had just started putting together this Unfinished Business CD. And she didn't really know what she wanted to do yet. She had some old demos. She had some old tracks. And, I helped her produce that record, kind of put it together to figure out what we needed to do to not only sell records, but to shine a light on all things Eric.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of really how we became involved, and I became involved in Unfinished Business. She was working with some other people, finishing up tracks. Bruce Kulick was a big part of finishing up some tracks. And, she brought me on board really to figure out, okay, where do we go from here? I have all this stuff. Is this enough? Is this what the public wants from this CD? And I said, yes, of course. But sometimes demos, and a lot of it was demos and unfinished tracks. And just, it was good. But if you remember Rockology, a lot of that was unfinished too. And this was even going to be more unfinished. So my goal was to really make things more complete songs, get vocalists to finish tracks that they only had instrumentation for. Loretta asked ZO2 to be a part of it. We didn't know what we were going to do, but I suggested, since it's one of the only tracks that Eric really had writing credit on, was for us to redo All Hell's Breaking Loose, which we did on the record, of course. And then, Loretta was kind enough to ask me to recreate Car Jam, which was, a dream come true.
Wow. We're like not even 10 minutes in, and this is a lot deeper than I imagined. So
hold on one second. I just want to plug in my computer before I lose power. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Now I'm good. Sorry, brother.
No, you're absolutely fine. In fact, while you were doing that, I went ahead and grabbed this box because now I'm digging through, because as soon as you mentioned Rockheads, I have this little Rockheads thing in my collection. And of course, now I have to dig through it, but it actually kind of works perfectly that we're talking about this, because I must have gotten this at one of the Indianapolis Expos, because Eric Carr, they always had a table there for ericcarr.com. And they had these little things for Rockheads that it was around the same time that this was all coming out. So again, this must have been what you were talking about, what you were involved in. I'm surprised it's taking me this long to find it, but I know it is I know it is in here. I got a bunch of junk in this little old this little box here. A bunch of Kiss stuff. At least I thought it was in here. Maybe it's not, and I'm just digging for no reason. But oh well, there's that Eric Carr.
Oh yeah, sure.
Um,
No, but the Rockheads was great. Like I said, we fleshed it all out. We had some really strong interest from some really great networks. It's just pulling the trigger on something. It's hard to get a network to put. It's I hate to say it, but it's millions of dollars behind a series. So we're still we haven't given up. We're still working on it. I think it's a great concept. We have a whole season of stories written out based off of some of Eric's old, creations and old write-ups. I kind of changed up some of the characters. We needed a female character, so I made the bass player a female. And it's all of Eric's original drawings that we were working with that we made. We had this animation company redo and revamp, and the trailer is. It's great. I mean, if you showed it already, in this episode after you edit it, it's just a lot of fun. And again, if you think Scooby-Doo meets Kiss, that's the Rockheads.
Yeah, I remember when it first came out, and I was, I think the Facebook page, I think it's still on Facebook. If you search Eric Carr Rockheads and go to Google, it'll take you to the Facebook page where the trailer's up there. And I remember seeing it, thinking, "Holy crap! If this becomes a TV show, I mean, how awesome is that?" I know Gene Simmons had his on Nickelodeon, so to have another one, an Eric Carr one would be fantastic. But I had no idea that was actually you involved with sort of bringing that to life. So were you doing any actual animations or anything like actual on the computer, or who was actually doing the?
So we hired an animation company. We outsourced it. I did a little bit of the voices and some of the voiceover work. Like I said, we co-wrote the theme song together with a couple of other guys. But all the storyboarding. So again, if anyone who's ever tried to develop one of these shows, you can't just, it doesn't go from A to Z. You have to take every step. And, it starts with writing a script. So I wrote a script for a basic trailer and a basic, the pilot episode, based around Eric's concept. This is all from Eric's source material. And to have, me growing up and I worshiped Eric. So when I met with Loretta, dozens and dozens of times, and we spent hours and hours together just sorting through all of Eric's papers and his drawings and his notes. And, we took all of that stuff and I came up with a really fun pilot script, which turned into a season worth of episodes. And from those season worth of episodes, we started mapping out a trailer, which became the sizzle reel. And, we had to figure out the storyboards. And, I'm not I can draw a little bit, but I'm not a full-fledged artist. But I would, Loretta and I were mapping out every frame of every panel of the story to figure out how we're going to tell in a minute and a half who these Rockheads are, what the story is, that there's music involved, that it's a musical show, that there's mystery and a supernatural element, but also make you love the characters and the voices. Loretta does one of the voices. I think her niece does one or two of the voices. So it was just so much fun putting together. And, you have to kind of do the voices and then animate over the voices. So what we did was, we wrote the script. And, I had everyone do their parts and do their voiceovers. And then I sent it to the animation company and said, here's the pacing I need. Here's the frames I need. Here's the storyboard. Build in this voiceover work. And that's kind of how it happened.
That's nuts, man. That's crazy. I didn't realize it was going to that level. Well, I really hope that in the future it's able to happen in some way, shape, or form. So hopefully you and Rhoda keep at it. And I'm not sure how I would help, but if there's anything I can do to help make that happen, I would love to help, because I wish I tried digging through. I couldn't find that little thing, but maybe I'll insert it in the video like you said. But anyway, okay, so I already know how, you got involved in this. So what were the other guys in ZO2 thinking because I mean, obviously it was kind of you and Loretta. So were they going to get us on there? Or what was their reaction, Paulie and David?
Yeah, no. So when I asked them to be part of it, of course, we jumped at the chance. They jumped at the chance, being huge Kiss fans. Paulie Z from ZO2 was in the Kiss tribute band with me. He was Paul Stanley. So, we had the whole Kiss thing down. He sounded like Paul Stanley. So, for us to do All Hell's Breaking Loose, and, I think it came out pretty great. It was actually a harder track to track for me as a drummer than Carr Jam. And I know that sounds crazy and people are going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? So Carr Jam is a little more free. So, if you listen to my version of Carr Jam, it's not exactly Carr Jam 81. It's Carr Jam 81 mixed with the Unmasked and Creatures and Asylum solos, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I kind of comboed a little bit of everything. And it's really the solo that I used to do with Kiss Nation every night. So I've done that solo, I don't know, 200 times.
True.
I never tried to record it, but, we have live recordings of it. But, to recreate All Hell's Breaking Loose. And, Eric is one of the most underrated drummers ever. And I don't mean his chops like on Carr Jam and like, some other stuff that he does like No, No, No. And, all these crazy fast songs under the gun. Just his straight grooves. He has such a swagger when he plays his right. You could hear it if you listen to the Creatures of the Night box set that just came out, and you listen to some of those tracks, the unmixed tracks of Saint and Sinner, and any of those, even Rock and Roll Hell. The drum sound on that record, of course, we all know is undeniable, but it's the cymbal work and his hi-hat work that is so intricate, and he has a certain way of accenting his eighth notes that it's very hard to capture because he's kind of in a pocket with his bass drum and his snare, but he's kind of a little bit of ahead of the beat on his hi-hat. And it's a weird feel that he has, but it works so perfectly for all these Kiss songs. So tracking All Hell's Breaking Loose was actually harder for me to try to get that swagger groove.
I appreciate you bringing this to the table because that's totally, again, the opposite of what I would think. I would think that because it's a very, as compared to Carr Jam and other Kiss songs, it's pretty slow as far as the pacing goes, pretty steady. But then again, keeping time with that may be a little difficult. But interesting insight there on Eric's drumming. I really appreciate that. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about Eric's drumming in a little bit. But so I wanted to ask you this question because I actually did not know about this particular piece of information until within the last maybe 5 years. But it goes back to when Eric wrote and they were about to record All Hell's Breaking Loose. Allegedly, Eric Carr was not happy at all with the final version of the song. And according to Paul, it was supposed to be a lot different. And when Eric heard the final version, he was, completely very upset about it. Have you heard this? And do you know anything about this? Or what do you think?
It is funny. So I have heard this, and I'm not sure if you know this, but it's been publicly announced already. I'm doing a book with Tom and Zeus from Shout It Out Loudcast, if you know those guys.
I did not know that you were doing this book. Sweet.
Yep, so
okay.
Tom and Zeus and I are collaborating on a Kiss book together. Wow. And it's basically, it's a review of every single Kiss song, some by us, but by celebrities, by musicians. We have everyone from Bruce and Ace and Chris Jericho, Mike Portnoy, everyone and anyone that's a big, massive Kiss fan in the industry talking about literally every Kiss song in the catalog. And I'm talking 5, 6, 7 reviews for every song. So it's been a big undertaking, but it's funny that you mentioned. So we have Loretta doing a couple of the tracks as well. Okay. And I was just inputting some of her stuff today, and which the book hopefully will be out this summer. That's the plan. Loretta mentions exactly that with All Hell's Breaking Loose, that she calls him Paul. Of course, Paulie was never happy with the final version of All Hell's, like the rap and all that stuff. From what I understand is Eric wrote the guitar riff. So he wrote the main riff. And then I don't know how it became this rappy verse. So I know Eric wasn't happy with it at the time, but I think, being, what was it, the second single on Lick It Up, I'm assuming once that became a single, I have a feeling he started liking it.
Yeah, I wish I could remember where my source was that I was reading this from, because I think I heard that like Eric was hearing more of a, I think it might have been a quote from Paul actually. He said that Eric was thinking it was more, he was going with more of like a Zeppelin feel in his head. And when it came out with this modern rap, I think Paul tried to justify it and say, well, I wanted to keep it sort of modern, and to do something else would be a mimicry of somebody else. But I don't know. I do know that there was a quote from Eric Carr where he was saying, like, hey, they're using my music. So I think, at the end of the day, he may have been really excited too.
And listen, it's a very unique song in the Kiss catalog. We know it so well now because we've heard it so many times, and it's obviously a single and a video. But if you really dig into that song, it's a pretty unique Kiss song. There's no other song like it.
I really enjoy it, and I think it's really underrated. I mean, Lick It Up, I think I really like because it's got those songs like Young and Wasted and Fits Like a Glove, where it's a little bit more upbeat and heavy. But then you got All Hell's Breaking Loose, which is just straight up, just very chill. You can almost like march to it. And that's what makes Kiss great, is those marching band, those singable songs. And of course it says, Rock the Nation. And there was the Rock the Nation tour.
And let me tell you, doing those, let me tell you another hard part on that damn song, those freaking backing vocals. So Dave and I from ZO2 did all those backing vocals on that. Haven't you heard? There's a new revolution. And then it goes up. Oh my God, it was so hard to recreate those gang vocals because there's a lot of melody and layering of those vocals as well. It was an undertaking. We didn't think it was going to be when we said, oh, let's do All Hell's Breaking Loose. We figured, that's an easy song. It was a pain in the ass.
For sure. How was Paulie able to pull off them vocals? Because Paul, to do Paul Stanley is pretty crazy, but Paulie did a pretty good job. How many takes did it take, do you think?
So Paulie's vocals, he killed it right away. Paulie is a Paul Stanley fanatic. He was in Kiss Nation. If you go to my YouTube page, you'll see us doing a lot of those old, Kiss songs. Paulie kills all that stuff. What did give him problems was the damn solo, because we're a three-piece. He's the lead guitarist too, Paulie. Oh. So that Vinnie Vincent solo, recreating that, if I remember correctly, when he first did it, it wasn't right. And he didn't know it wasn't right. So David, who was the bass player in ZO2 and bass player for Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and he was very muso and he knew his shit. And he was like, no, Paulie, I don't think that's right. I think it's supposed to be this. And Paulie was like, oh, really? And it worked out. And if you hear the solo, it's just about the exact same solo.
Dang, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, again, you wouldn't think that song would be as crazy as it is, but I guess it is. So obviously you talked about how you were the drummer on Carr Jam, and to re-record the incredible Carr Jam. So were there any other drummers ever considered for that, or was that always your gig?
I don't think there were. So a gentleman named Benny Doro and I did that. Benny, I believe, did all the guitar and bass on that. He's a fucking monster.
That was my next question. Yeah.
Benny's a monster. Benny was in Kiss Nation, believe it or not, before I was. We never actually, maybe we played one show together, but we never really played together. So I know he was already in works with Eric, with Loretta to do Carr Jam. And I think originally he sent me the track and it wasn't Carr Jam. It was actually Breakout. And he which is, obviously the same song, but he thought we were redoing the full song Breakout from, the Frehley's Comet version of Breakout.
Right.
But I was like, no, I thought we were doing Carr Jam. And I don't remember if maybe we were supposed to do Breakout and I said, no, let's do Carr Jam. I kind of don't remember exactly what happened there, but I made him redo it. I said, no, dude, we're going to do Carr Jam. And like I said, I don't know if it was a mistranslation from him, from Loretta, or maybe I made it up in my brain that we were doing Carr Jam, or I wishful thinking, but I made him redo it. And Benny, if you listen to that, is shredding all over that. I had so much fun doing that song, but it was, don't get me wrong, it was an undertaking, but it was so much fun to do.
That's awesome. I think I did a video a few days ago about the Eric Carr specific release, the Eric Carr Record Store release. Somebody commented and was asking, hey, I teased the interview, I was like, hey, Joey's coming back on to talk about it. Somebody had asked, hey, who's Joey playing with on that track? So there you go. There's your answer. It was Benny Doro. And you said that he was in Kiss Nation before you were. Was that the band that he was in? Because he was in an episode of Three Sides of the Coin talking about how he was managed by Paul Stanley and how in the 90s he ended up becoming the Paul Stanley, the Star Child, in a Kiss tribute band. Is that the same one or is it a different one?
Yep, the Kiss tribute band he's talking about is Kiss Nation, and
Wow.
I remember him telling stories to me too, but I don't know what the original band was that he was managed by Paul Stanley. But yeah, I know those stories. He had sent me demos of that stuff. It's great. It's really fun, really good music.
That is awesome. I know Benny has an incredible story. I may need to reach out to him because I know his story is pretty incredible, and obviously it only gets deeper. But so I wanted to ask you this too, because I've also heard rumors that, well, I don't know if it's about rumors, but I've heard various fans comment that if Eric Carr were to have known that Eric Carr Jam 81 was going to be released officially, that he would be upset with that and very disappointed that they chose that recording to be released. And I've always, disagreed with that, but I don't know if you have any insight on that or what you would think, but what do you think if Eric Carr would, because I know he wanted to have his own release and his own recordings, and it never happened. So after he passed, one got released. What do you think?
Well, listen, I think Carr Jam, that solo was recorded, I guess 81, 82, somewhere in that area. I don't know for sure, but I don't think that was ever meant to be released. I think it was maybe Eric just playing in the studio, or I don't know if it was ever meant to be released. There was always those rumors that Peter Criss recorded a solo for in Strange Ways, I think, for Hotter Than Hell.
Right.
And that had gone by the wayside, and that never was released, of course. But I had heard rumors that he recorded that. But I don't think that this was ever meant to be released. And I understand if Eric felt that way, and I don't know for sure if he did or if he didn't, and I don't want to speculate, but I can understand that. As much as it's killer, the production on it is not great. Even like my production on my drums stinks too on the record. Like I had to do a lot of that with I did on electric drums just because at the time we didn't have the budget to go into a big studio to redo it. So I didn't have a great sound for my stuff as well. But Eric sounds great. But if you listen to some of his other solos live, they're bigger, they're better, they're more transcendent, their sound is better. So I don't know if he would be upset. I think he'd love to be honored, and I think he would love that his solo was officially on a record. And don't get me wrong, everything about the solo is immaculate. There's no mistakes. He's playing incredibly well. But knowing Eric, and I think knowing that Eric was probably a little bit of a fanatic and a perfectionist, I could see why he wouldn't have loved it, because he would have probably wanted it to sound a little bit more bombastic, where it's a little dry sounding.
For sure. And I can totally see where, looking back, if he had, because obviously he had passed before it was released. So I can see where maybe if he had known, no, that was a personal recording. You should have done this one or should have done that one. But I don't know, because I listened to it my whole life, and every time I hear it, it is something special. And I personally am so thankful that it got released, because I've listened to it everywhere: headphones, stereo, car, laptop, whatever. The car is in the best Eric Carr. No, listening to it in the car is always the best.
Of course.
I will just sit in the driveway and just listen to an Eric, or sit in the parking lot, whatever, and just listen to Carr Jam because of how big and bombastic it is, and how, like you said, perfect, immaculate. There is no hitting the sticks, hitting the rim, no accidental like hi-hat or ting on the cymbal. Everything he's doing is perfect. And like you said, that was just him in the studio playing, maybe warming up, maybe just wanting to lay something down, get the juices flowing. The fact that it was that awesome and that perfect just goes to show how awesome of a drummer he is. And so I personally, even though he may be a little like, maybe you think of Eric as being a little bit more shy and reserved about that, I'm just so glad that it's out there because of how perfect it is. And when I think about it, I'm like, I still can't believe it even happened, because Gene and Paul have never done anything like that ever before. You know what I mean? Like, right. Obviously they weren't going to do anything when Mark St. John passed, and there was no other members that passed, but that's the only time in history something like that has ever happened, where they put just a solo at the end of an album. I love that.
I think it was a fitting tribute. I think it was amazing that they did it. Obviously, that Eric passing at that time was devastating to many, devastating to me. And I'm glad they did it. It lives in infamy on that record. It's a big part of that record for me anyway. I love that that's on that record to kind of, bridge that gap from the Eric Carr years into, the Singer years. But again, I think Eric, like you said, I think Eric, it was just him jamming in the studio, warming up. Probably it wasn't meant to be, I love the Animalized Live Uncensored solo. I live with that one. So there's so many great ones. So I just know Eric being Eric would always want it to be bigger and better. But I'm very, very, very glad and happy that we got it.
Maybe it says it was recorded in 81. Maybe it was during an elder recording session. He was getting tired doing the slow stuff and said, you know what, guys, just give me 5 minutes. Just give me a few minutes here. Let me rip this out. Anyway,
it has to be those years, because if he wrote it with Ace Breakout.
Yeah.
So the riff and stuff he wrote with Ace. So it's got to be around that time, whether it's right before the Elder or right after the Elder. That's the only time he was ever in the studio and Ace was around. Ace wasn't in any of the Creature sessions. That doesn't sound like Creature session drums. So it's got to be that era.
It's crazy. That's awesome. I wanted to ask this next question, and you can answer it however you want. We're going to go back to talking about, ZO2 and you being on the album. So when I wrote this question, I didn't realize that you were as involved in this as I thought. I literally thought that this was something that was being done, and then you were either brought in or you were asked to be on, but I didn't realize that you were actually like knee deep involved in this. So answer this however you want, but I'm asking because I feel like there are a lot of people, myself included, who don't know how the music industry works. And so on a project like this, how are you compensated on something like this? Is this something that is an upfront thing, or are you getting like checks every month, like $1.50, or because it is Eric Carr, was you just volunteering on this? I didn't realize that you were this involved. So
yeah. So again, listen, every deal is different. So there's no blanket statement for any of these things. Everyone's deals are different. I probably got compensated different than the next guy on the same, maybe even on the same song, or than anything else. So, Eric, Loretta and I worked out something that was mutually beneficial to us. I was honored to be part of the record. So there was no way I was charging her an arm and a leg to do something for my idol and to kind of give tribute back to him on his memorial. So, listen, I was more than happy with what Loretta got from me to do the tracks, and, nothing was ever laid out. She paid for studio time and all that stuff. So Loretta always does the right thing. But quick little insight. So the cover of the record, I actually picked out the cover of the record, the
this
original
right here?
one. Yep.
Wow, nice.
So that's from the Ludwig sessions. So if you remember, there was a picture of him with I forget which Ludwig it was, but one of the Ludwig guys. And that's always been one of my favorite photo sessions of Eric. Not only because you really get to see his full kit set up, but his makeup is killer that day. I always loved the unmasked costume. And there's not a lot of stuff that out there from that session. And I remember Loretta originally had, I forget what it was. It was this random, I think it was a shot of Eric behind his kit. And I could be wrong, but I think it was a shot of Eric behind his kit, like looking back from like the Asylum era or something. And it was a cool shot. And, you saw like Eric's set from behind him. It was a cool, candid shot. But I was like, Loretta, I love that shot. But what's the back of that? What's the back of that CD? What's the shot on the back of that CD?
It's it looks like a picture from like I'll Get Rock and Roll to You, Hot in the Shade.
Gotcha. Yep.
Right around there.
So again, I was like, Loretta, we got to use a makeup shot. What do you have? Like, what do you have rights to? So she's like, oh, I have this photo shoot that Eric did that I think I'd be able to use. And she showed me, and when she opened up the Ludwig photo shoot, my mind was blown. I was like, oh my God. I mean, this is the exact shot you have to use. And that was the one. And that's originally like a much wider shot. You can see.
I can only imagine.
But we had to crop it just for the cover. But that Ludwig shoot, just personally for me, because I'm a Ludwig guy too, has always been one of my favorite things. If you can see, I'll show you right up here. This is the Ludwig 100th anniversary poster.
Wow.
And if you can see, I'm actually right next to Eric, can you see it?
Oh my gosh, CO2, Kiss, Van Halen, yeah, Queen,
See
Ozzy,
it?
quite right. Oh my gosh, dude,
So
that is crazy.
pretty epic. So the guy at Ludwig, his name was Todd Trent. He was my rep over at Ludwig, and he knew that I was the biggest Eric mark in the world, and he was actually Eric's roadie for a long time.
Oh,
And so when they were doing the 100th anniversary poster, I went to NAMM. If I'm not sure if do you know what NAMM is?
the convention out
Yep.
west
So
in
NAMM is a
California.
big music convention for all musicians and artists and stuff that they go to out in LA every year. So when I went to NAMM and that we were doing a signing at the Ludwig booth, he surprised me, and all the Ludwig guys like surprised me with this banner that was hanging up at the Ludwig booth, and they gave me one. And when I saw it, I lost my mind.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, how could you not, right? You're freaking next to Eric Carr. So you mentioned earlier Rockology. We have Rockology right here, Record Store Day release, and now we have Unfinished Business. So, do you think it's possible that there will be a third one, another one coming up next year?
Well, I do know Loretta's working hard on a new documentary.
Oh,
Yep. I don't know. I actually thought it was supposed to be released already, but these things get tangled up. I know, with COVID and all this other stuff. So I
oh
know
man.
there's stuff. Listen, Loretta's always pumping out new Eric Carr stuff, whether it's just actual, material, bobbleheads, statues, all this type of stuff. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Got this little
I think
gold coin.
I might have that right here too. I mean, I have
Do
it
you
somewhere.
really? I remember when they
got-
first
This is-
came out with it.
Oh, this is from that same session.
Oh wow, that looks sweet.
Yeah. So that, Loretta's always pumping out, and she's always very generous and sending me care packages all the time. But there's a lot of stuff always down the pipeline. I don't know of another CD coming or another musical release. I would hope there is. I don't know how much more stuff that's out there that not only that she has ownership of or that there's unreleased stuff. I really don't know, but I do know the new documentary is coming. I was interviewed for it. I know a lot of other people were interviewed for it. That's going to be really cool.
I hope that gets like a DVD release or something, because I was unaware of that. Thank you so much for informing us of that. Now I will say real quickly, because there we go, I'm back in focus. So for a second there I was out of focus and I was like, all right, we're having to just deal with me being blurry, but no, I'm back. Anyway,
and there's a lot of cool, I know there's a lot of cool, I think I can say all this, I'm not even sure, Loretta might yell at me, but I know there's a lot of cool behind the scenes footage so Gary Corbett was filming a lot of stuff just on his camcorder back then when he was on the road with them, and a lot of stuff of just him and Gary kind of hanging out, him and Eric on the road and the streets, and just hanging out. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I think no one's ever seen before.
That is awesome, man. Thank you so much for sharing. The reason why I say another Record Store Day release is because both of these have come with 5 alternate tracks or 5 unreleased tracks, and so the next one just could be a compilation of all the unreleased tracks plus 1 or 2. I mean, anything is like I said, as long as Loretta's keeping Eric's legacy alive, I think the fans are going to be happy with that. But I cannot wait to hear more about that documentary. That's going to be sweet. So obviously you're a huge Eric Carr fan. You've talked a lot about being in that Kiss tribute band, Kiss Nation. I think you talked about that story in the last episode. So anybody watching, if you didn't catch Joey on the last episode of Kiss Army Things, I forget which episode number it was, but 92, something like that, 91, 90. Go back and check it out because it was super fun. But I want to ask, how many times were you able to see Eric Carr live?
I got to see him a number of times. I actually saw his last concert, which was the last show at Madison Square Garden of the Hot in the Shade tour. That was his very last show ever. I was at that show, so that meant a lot to me. And believe it or not, I almost missed that show. There's a story in my book about that show where one of my original bands, Playground, we were filming something that day, and I had tickets to the show, and I didn't think I was going to make it. And I was young still. I was 15, I think, ish. And I didn't think I was going to be able to make it. And we wrapped up quick, and my brother was there, and we packed up my drums really quick, and we drove, and we got into the city, and we got to see that last show. You know, obviously nobody knew that that was going to be his last show, but, you know, I got to see him 3 times, I think, on the Asylum tour, 3 times on Crazy Nights, 3 times on Hot in the Shade.
Golly.
I think that's it. I tried to get to see him when they did that little club run with Eric at the Ritz in New York. I couldn't get tickets to that.
Yep.
I did get to see Eric Singer in '92 on their club, on the Revenge Club dates at Lemoore in Brooklyn, which was one of my favorite shows of all time. And
That was incredible.
that show is on YouTube. It's one of the best sounding Kiss bootlegs you'll ever hear. Go look up on YouTube, Brooklyn Rock City. It's incredible.
Heck
But yeah,
man.
Eric, you know, Eric was always amazing live. The Hot in the Shade tour especially was so magical, not only because of the Sphinx and the stage, but it almost felt like Kiss was back, right? You had the singles, you know, the Forever was a big hit, and Hide Your Heart was a big hit on MTV, and they had the 2 up-and-coming bands. I saw them with Winger and Slaughter, and you know, back to a lot of the old songs, opening up with "I Stole Your Love," and so there was a lot of older Kiss starting to be, you know, brought back. So Hot in the Shade was really, I thought it was going to be a launching point for the, you know, that next step. But, you know, unfortunately, Eric passed not that long after that.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is awesome. I'm so glad that you got to see Eric live. Now, you weren't able to meet him, were you?
No, I never got to meet him. Again, you know, people are so spoiled today, like these damn If they had meet and greets back in the 80s and early 90s, I would have spent anything. I would have sold anything I had to do one of these meet and greets, to meet and hang out with Eric, and, you know, because he was my guy. So, you know, it's unfortunate that back then they didn't have those, but I think they didn't have them because they didn't need to have them. Back then, people made money off records. They made money off of, you know, they sell 1 million records. They're making millions of dollars off that record. So they didn't need to do meet and greets and so on and so forth. Nowadays, you're offsetting that lost revenue and income from record labels that nobody has anymore because of streaming services. So these bands have to do these meet and greets and to kind of balance that out. So I wish I got a chance to meet him. Did you ever meet him?
Eric Carr? No, we never lived on the earth at the same time. I was born in '95. He passed in '91.
Wow.
So
Incredible.
we never even existed at the same time. But it's crazy how somebody who I never even lived at the same time as still had a major impact on my life. I always think people always talk about, would Eric be in Kiss today, or in Kiss, you know, after the reunion, whatever. And I don't really, you know, think about that or care about that. But I just think about how, you know, we live in an age with social media, and how incredible would Eric Carr be on social media? Because you have all these videos of him, like on what was that one documentary?
Either Confidential or Close Up, one of those, right? Doing
there was an Eric Carr
sound checking the toms.
Tail
of the Fox.
Tail of the Fox, yes. And he was testing the tom drum, and then there was one where he's like, "This is Eric's chicken. You don't touch Eric Carr's chicken." And, you know, he's talking about Eric Carr's headband and his makeup brush and all this stuff. And I just think, man, that was back in the 80s and the 90s when it was just a camcorder. Could you imagine him going live nowadays? I mean, he was so good to the fans then. Imagine his relationship with us now. But
yeah, I mean,
no, you're right.
Stories, every story you hear of Eric is how much he loved to be around the fans, talk to the fans. I'm good friends with Eddie Trunk, and Eddie can't speak higher than he speaks of Eric. So many amazing backstage stories and behind the scenes stories of just hanging out with Eric, that he was just the sweetest, down to earth guy that you'd ever want to meet. And you're right, if he was around for all these past decades, I can only imagine not only musically what he'd be doing, but just, you know, the content we would have from him. Like, I remember as a kid, you know, until he says that one line, I think, in Exposed, I never even heard him speak. I never even heard Eric talk. I remember when I first got Animalized Live Uncensored, and he starts singing Young and Wasted. I pressed pause and I like ran to my room top speed to get the Lick It Up record and put it on. And I'm like, wait a second. That's Gene, I think.
Yeah.
And, never knowing what Eric really sounded like in an interview, you didn't have, again, even you probably take it for granted being so young. We didn't have YouTube and to find these archived interviews with people like Eric. So literally when I grew up, I never heard Eric speak ever. I never heard an interview with Eric. And I don't even remember the first time I heard him. I'm like, oh, he kind of sounds like he's from Brooklyn, like I do. So I was kind of happy. I kind of liked it. But, back then you didn't get all the content that you have now, which is, so great to have.
I'm trying to think now when the first time I ever heard Eric Carr, because I know that the first time I ever saw Eric Carr was day one of being a Kiss fan, was on Extreme Close Up. Gene talks about Eric Carr having the camera and always taking pictures, and then, being a prankster and a jokester. So, I always knew about, Eric's, his character, his personality, just as much as I knew about his drums. And I love how, Gene and Paul have always not just spoken highly of him as a person, but also as a musician and a drummer. Gene always talked about how he was a top-notch drummer. He pushed Kiss to be a harder and heavier band. And when it came to him playing live, one of the things I always enjoyed about Eric Carr's playing was when he would, during his solos, he would incorporate those synth toms up top. Because, again, I mean, it's a rock and roll band, but yet I feel like it was very modern of him to use those synth drums with either the synth or just the opera voices, la 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 la, and the Hot in the Shade, Crazy Nights. So I just wanted to talk to you about that. What did you think about that? What were some of your favorite things that Eric Carr would do during solos?
Oh, I mean, I think he started that in the Asylum tour, right? When he started incorporating this.
So.
And again, I was obsessed with everything, Eric. I think I spoke to you last time. I tried to recreate that Asylum red drum kit, and all the way to the Simmons pads. I wanted pads. And I remember like Christmas, and my birthday is like a month after Christmas. And I remember one year I went to Sam Ash and picked out all the pads. I had all the pads. I was going to set it up same as Eric and try to recreate that drum solo. I think on the Asylum tour, he just had the bass notes going, but I didn't realize, I'm a kid. I'm probably 13 years old when I got to Sam Ash to buy the pads, and the pads I priced out. They were like $80 each. So I was getting 5 pads for Christmas and my birthday. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be incredible. Not realizing you need a brain to operate the pads, right? So here's my left right here. Here's my brain, my Roland right here. So without the brain, you can't run pads. I don't know this as a kid. I'm just thinking the pad makes sounds. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So it's like, the brain is like a 700. So my mom was like, get the fuck out of here. You're not getting a $700 brain. So I never wind up getting the pads as a kid. But, I was always obsessed with that solo. I loved Eric was so musical. People don't realize, but Eric wasn't just a drummer. He played bass. He played guitar. Obviously, he sang, played bass on I Still Love You, right?
I always forget about that.
Yep. And so there's so many things that Eric did that he was more than just a drummer of Kiss. And I wish, not that he didn't get his just due back then, but they were still, it was the Gene and 80s was the Gene and Paul Tug show, right?
Yeah.
I want 5 songs, you get 4 songs. I want 5 songs, you get 4 songs, and blah. We get 5 each, blah, blah, blah. If, looking at Monster and Sonic Boom, how Tommy and Eric both got a vocal song on both of those records. I love that they did. I think it's warranted. I think it's incredible. But I wish even Vinny, to an extent, Vinny has an incredible voice, incredible songwriter. God, I would have loved Kiss to continue as this Beatlesque band with 4 unique members rather than it just becoming Gene and Paul. Even the interviews just became Gene and Paul in the 80s. I wish Eric got more, a vocal track, at least of one vocal track every album, more songwriting credits, more involved in the day-to-day. People, and Paul Stanley mainly, crap all over the new characters, right? I think they were brilliant. I personally, at the time, was overwhelmed and mystified, and I thought they were magical.
Love that.
I couldn't wait to see another picture of Vinny with his makeup on. I would go through every magazine at the newsstand to see if there's any pictures, and that doesn't have any. Wait, here's one, and I'd immediately go buy it. And so I loved seeing those two new characters. So when Paul says they didn't work because Kiss didn't work at that time. It had nothing to do with the characters. It had to do with a little bit of the backlash from I Was Made for Loving You into the pop record Unmasked, which, don't get me wrong, I love Unmasked.
Oh,
it's one of my favorite records. So I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm saying, but I understand at that time you had Judas Priest, Van Halen, Iron Maiden, all this stuff coming out, and Kiss is going more towards, Cynthy, Duran more. They're more in that world. They're more in that poppy, new wave world, if you will, on Unmasked, than going to, Van Halen 2 and, AC/DC Back in Black. That was on this side. Kiss was more new wave. If you really listen to, Naked City and Easy as It Seems and What Makes the World Go Round, that's synthy new wave music, and I loved it. But that's where Kiss lost the fan base. They didn't lose me, but the diehards that loved Kiss. So when Vinny and Eric got their makeup and Creatures was out, it was too late at that point. Creatures didn't sell not because Creatures wasn't great, because nobody liked The Elder and Unmasked.
That's right. And social media wasn't there to say, hey, this is actually pretty good, guys.
Right. And the album that's selling now is not based on the album. It's based on the album before it.
Yep.
So, or if you have
3 records too late.
If you're lucky to have a hit single on a record, it'll sell the current record. But people buy a record based on what happened right before it, not what's happening right now usually.
That's true.
So the characters worked. It's just that Kiss didn't work at the time. So I hate when Paul says, what were we gonna have? Frog Boy and Turtle Man, whatever the hell it was. I hate that he shits on the characters like that, because I really do think they did work. And I think they could have worked again with Tommy and Eric as well.
Interesting, for sure. I really do think that they could have and should have trusted Eric more in the 80s to do more interviews, because he was so personable with the fans and with people. And I wish they would have saw that more, because you are right. They were competing, and it seemed like, Paul was always, he was the one with all the singles, and he was the one in the front of the music videos, which, again, it makes sense. They were the ones that started the band, but it did seem like sometimes that Eric was just kind of being thrown a bone here and there. Yeah, you can sing the song that Gene sang on the record live. Yeah, right. You can have you re-record Beth for this, and yeah, we'll give you one song on Hot in the Shade. I've really come around to realizing just how awesome Eyes of Love is. I've always loved that song, but when I hear it now, I'm not sure what has clicked, but that song is just a bona fide rocker, and it just stuns me that something like that wouldn't make it. Now, do you know if that was submitted for Hot in the Shade? Do you know any backstory on Eyes of Love?
I think Eyes of Love was something Eric was holding for Rockheads, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay, gotcha.
Yep. I think there was a lot of songs around that time. Tierra, I think, was one of them. I forget some of the other ones back then. He was writing, and I'm not sure whether he submitted them to Kiss or not. I'm not sure. I think maybe Tierra was. What's the other ballad on? Is there a ballad on? What's the ballad on Rockology and Unfinished Business? What are the ballads? I don't remember. There was a ballad that was submitted for Hot in the Shade that didn't make it because of Forever. Maybe that was Tierra. I don't remember.
Yeah, I'll say there's Tiara, but there's Dial L for Love. I'm not sure what that one was.
Not that.
Just Can't Wait. Troubles Inside You. I Cry at Night. That's
I don't remember which was the one, but again, I do know. I don't know if they were all submitted or not, but I do know a lot of them were being worked for Rockheads.
Interesting. Very cool. You mentioned earlier, we were talking about how Eric was a multi-instrumentalist. He wasn't just a drummer. He was also a singer. He could play bass. He could do all this. So one of the things I really forgot about Unfinished Business was his cover of Shandy. Now, do you know anything about this cover of Shandy, when this was done? And is that him playing the instruments on that album?
Again, I'm not positive, but from what I remember, I think that's I think that's one of his audition tapes for when he auditioned with Kiss. He submitted himself singing Shandy. I'm not sure if it says it I'm not sure if it says it in the liner notes, but if I remember correctly from when Loretta was putting it together, that's his audition tape for when he auditioned for Kiss.
It is. I didn't realize it.
He can sing, yeah.
So yeah, I didn't realize it. So on the inside of I should have done my research here, but on the inside of the original Unfinished Business, each track has a little bit stated. It says that in 2007, Eric Carr's Kiss audition tape had surfaced, and it featured an unknown musician named Paul Caravello singing Shandy. So, whoa! It says his vocals were lifted from the tape and combined with a refreshing new musical arrangement, making this update soar.
Oh, okay.
Joining Eric are some very talented artists whose contributions range from classical guitar. Okay, so that's not him on the instruments, but it is his voice from his audition tape. Okay,
right.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Cool. Well, I'll tell you what, this was a lot more involved than I thought. You brought a lot more to the table than I thought. I really just did think that it was just your band and you doing a cover. So you just shed a bunch of light on this. Thank you so much. As we're wrapping up, is there anything else that you would like to say about the Unfinished Business? Did you know this was coming out beforehand, or did you know when we know?
Well, I knew a little beforehand, but I didn't know very much beforehand. Like, I wasn't involved in the process this time. Loretta was doing this. I forget the company that put it out, but Loretta did it with them. She didn't release it like she released the original one. And I was like, when she sent me pictures of the light up eyes for the vinyl and stuff like that, I just thought it was over the top. I thought it was incredible. I really, not to say anything, but Kiss should take a note. If they could have, the Creatures, think of the Creatures box set. Mm-hmm. They just charged people, I think it was $1,000.
$900
for the Creatures box set. Like, what was it, like 8 vinyls or whatever it was?
Yep.
For that price tag, how could you not have done this? Made all the lights, eyes glow, on-off button, a little charger. How much was the vinyl for Eric? I think it was $44.99 or something like that.
Yeah. And here's what's crazy to me is because when they did that Creatures box set, so there was one for, I don't know if it was like 400 or 600. It was still way too much, but there was one set that came with, it was 9 LPs and a hoodie, and then this one came with 9 LPs and a sweat and a t-shirt. But the difference is that the reason why it was $900 is because the LPs were glow in the dark. I don't see how that makes it hundreds of dollars more. It was like, again, $400 to $900 or $600 to $900. It doesn't matter. You can't justify that.
I would bet it costs nothing extra to have that printed on that kind of material. That's what I would guess. But again, it's Kiss being Kiss. They're, it's Universal trying to get the most out of Kiss fans, and I get it. If Kiss fans are going to buy it, put it out and collect the money. But if you put something out at a little bit lesser price point, and you make the features more eye-catching, like the glow in the eyes, the glow in the dark eyes are incredible. If they would have done that and lowered the price point, they would have sold 10 times the amount of records and in the long run made more money.
Oh, absolutely. And it just makes me so glad that at least Loretta is doing something really cool like this for her brother. And so thank you for being a part of this and for coming on to share your involvement and your excitement and your fandom for Eric Carr, because you are one of the biggest Eric Carr fans I've probably ever met. So thank you so much for being on the show, sharing your insight. What are you doing now? Is there anything that you want to talk about now, what you're plugging? Because obviously you've been on Ace's album and now you're on this re-release. So what's going on in Joey's world now?
Yeah, it's, again, always staying busy. Obviously, having 2 records from Kiss members released on Record Store Day that I was on.
That's true. There was an Ace.
It was pretty weird. It was pretty surreal having an Ace Frehley and an Eric Carr record being released the same day that I just happened to play drums on both of them. So, that's a pretty surreal moment. But again, I'm always doing a million things. My band ZO2 back full-fledged, our new CD, Begin Again, out on Kibble Records right now. It's not streaming yet. We're just trying to get some hard copies out there first. If you go to kibblerecords.com, you could buy the new record. Again, it's a double disc. It's a greatest hits plus an all unreleased track side. Couple new songs, the theme song to the TV show, some singles that were never officially released. So great, cool packaging, lots of fun insider stuff inside as well. Check that out at kibblerecords.com. We'll be on the road a little bit this summer doing sporadic shows here and there. But just keep an eye out. I'll be out with Eric Martin a little bit again later this year, I think. I play with Eric Martin from Mr. Big, with PJ and Steve Brown from Trickster. We do our own little thing, doing all the Mr. Big hits, all the Trickster hits. So that's a lot of fun all the time. But just always staying busy, doing lots of different projects.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. I have one last question. I just thought of this. So you mentioned earlier that book you have coming out with you and Tom and Zeus from Shout Out Loudcast. You mentioned getting some people and some interviews. Can you tell us some other? Did you get any other wrestlers? Because I know there's a lot of wrestlers that are Kiss fans, and you mentioned Chris Jericho. So were there any other wrestlers? I know you're a huge wrestling fan.
There are definitely a couple of wrestlers in the book. I'll give you one more name that has a big part in the book that did some songs. Bully Ray, or Bubba Ray, as you know him from the Dudley Boys.
Yeah.
So he's a big Kiss fan. Again, it's been a real undertaking. We got, well over 100 different contributors to do reviews for the book. It's going to be, if you like that Kiss book, Kiss Behind the Mask, where Gene, Paul, and Peter and Ace kind of review every Kiss song. Yeah. This is that book on steroids.
My gosh, please let me know when that comes out. Send me a pre-order link because that sounds absolutely awesome. Thank you for dropping that news and the documentary news. Sorry, Loretta, on this show first, because that's amazing, man. So I really appreciate you joining me here.
Edit that out.
Are you serious? Because I will.
No.
All right, man. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Thank you so much for joining me. Everybody, you heard it here. Go to kibble.com, get the new ZO2 album. Follow Joey on social media, Facebook, and on Instagram. And you can also get your copies of Eric Carr, Record Store Day, Unfinished Business, and 10,000 Volts Now. Joey, thank you so much. Hopefully we'll have you back on in the future. But I hope you take care. And thank you so much for your time here today.
Thank you, brother. I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Everybody watching, please like, subscribe, follow Kiss Army Things on Facebook and Instagram. Subscribe here on YouTube. And I will see you in episode 96. My name is Xander. That is Joey. Peace out.
Woo!
Could you tell at the end I started to stutter a little bit, and I kind of stopped and paused and realized, oh wait, I think I just forgot to show more Kiss merch. Well, yes, so again, I forgot to show some Kiss merch, but that's how you know it was a good conversation. I got so caught up in the conversation that I forgot to talk about the Kiss merch of the year. So over the last handful of episodes, I've been showing something from my collection that coincides with the same year as the number of our episode, which is 95 this time. So I wanted to show something for you guys from 95, the year. And so this time I'm going to show you my parents' passes from the Kiss convention in 95. So they went to the convention up here in Indianapolis, had a wonderful time. And these are the passes from the event. And you're probably thinking, whoa. Why is Tommy Thayer on there? Well, actually, you can see there's both Tommy and Ace. Kind of shows you what kind of fan my dad was. He really didn't care about lineups and all that. He was just about the music and the fandom and all that. And so this was his thing. These passes, he brought these to every expo, every convention afterwards. And he would have whoever the guest was sign these. He went to the convention in 95, and they got it signed by, here, I'll show you here, Gene Simmons, right there. And then in 2011, we got Eric Singer's autograph, and Bruce's autograph, I think, in 09. And then, like I said, we met Tommy Thayer in 2012, and then Ace, I think, 2011. And so, both passes, both mom and dad's passes, had the same signatures on them. This was something that he just liked to do. I wouldn't do it, I usually have them just sign the pass that they're on. But again, he wasn't really thinking about, members and, Ace and Tommy, they can't be together. That wasn't my dad. But anyway, so I wanted to show these to you guys from 95. Obviously, they're a big part of my collection, as well as the tour book from the convention tour. So that's a very small tour book compared to the ones that Kiss has done in the last handful of years. But what I love about this is that on one of the last pages, it actually talks about the new Kiss album, which we all know is Carnival of Souls. And so it says, as of this writing, we are knee deep in our next studio album. And it shows some of the early artwork that we all know that was used for the cover of Carnival of Souls. But anyway, so yeah, just real quickly wanted to do a little amendment to the video again. I forgot to show some Kiss merch. Very unlike me, since I'm always showing Kiss merch at the end of my episodes. But thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end. I really do appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode with Joey. I had no idea that he was going to drop that much knowledge on us. It was so awesome. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Please stick around to the next episode, and I will see you then. Again, my name is Xander. Peace out.